I was a bit of a turkey flying with a great tailwind. And then the wind came out of its sails in 2001, 2. There was almost perfect storms of 9/11, the dot-com bang, telecoms, WorldCom, Enron, all of those companies went bust, and we had contractors in there. And literally we lost half of our book over kind of like a few months. And that was kind of, the turkey came out of the sky, and that was pretty damn painful. And we had to shrink down. We actually went into receivership for 12 months, which was very painful. We had directors falling out, disputes. We ended up in the high court, losing. It was pain for a few years, even though there was great joy for the first, about 98, 99, 2000, kind of 4 or 5 years of amazing. You thought everything you touched was going to turn to gold, and it was turning to gold. They used to call me Park Lane Paddy, because I had a flat on Park Lane up at the
Park Lane Paddy.
Yeah, a balcony overlooking Hyde Park. When the concerts were on, we used to be able to bring a party along, and the 9/11 convertible parked downstairs, and I was just kidding. And Bond Street offices for 60 or 70 people, and then all these other. I was absolutely. My English friend. Oh, here comes Park Lane Paddy. I was living the dream. But it soon, not like everything, but I didn't realize it was going to come and hit me so fast. And I guess people like my mentors and people around me who had been kind of hinting, Brian, you need to maybe slow it down or just be a bit more conservative. I think that I would have done things a lot differently. But so that's we went into receivership, came back out of receivership, then luckily went to MIT. It was sent before we pressed record there to the EO MIT program, the EMP, which is Entrepreneurial Masters program. I met Vern Harnish and the scaling up methodology, and I went and then put that into my business, which allowed me to rebuild and then eventually sell it back in 2018. So
it reminds me of I've kind of had similar conversations with many guests on the show, and two things stand out. One is that building a business or building wealth and keeping it are two different things.
Oh my God.
And everyone focuses on how do I build and how do I grow, but how do I keep what I've built? How do I walk away with something or sustain something? Because often they're two separate skill sets, which I think is probably what your mentor recognized. You have this tailwind and that, but something different might be required to maintain that for as long as you want, either to sell it or just to maintain it as a business. I think there's two different skills there, which can be hard to recognize. But it is very hard when you're being that successful not to think, I'm just a natural at this. I don't know, humility comes hard. But the other thing that strikes me is that, and so many people look at entrepreneurs and they see the Park Lane Paddy, and they see the Porsche parked, but they look at you in a particular way. But I'm going to say almost every entrepreneur I've ever spoken to, on the podcast or otherwise, tells the hard story as well. Like I've just never known a guy who's gone, I just nailed this and I've cruised for 40 years, and that's just, the hard stories are always there. It's what we learn from, I suppose. But every entrepreneur has them.
They do. You're absolutely right. And we don't show that to the external world. A lot of people think everything that we do touch turns to gold. But I remember on the humility bit, I remember saying to my wife, and this is going to, I need to be more humble. And you know what she said to me? She said, Brian, you've got a lot to be humble about.
Well, gosh, we must introduce our wives.
Well, you're married, something like that, you do actually kind of rein yourself back in and take a reality check. And, had I been married to her when that was going on, I think it would have been a whole lot different. Because I married her just as the tumble began. She married Park Lane Paddy, and then a year later she was married to Park Bench Paddy.
Yeah. But she's remained married to Brian Keegan.
Well, that's when you figure out that you got the right one, because
yes, yeah,
it's a 50-50, I think, chance that she could have, and
So when you became park bench Paddy, I love that. I'm guessing, did she change from the point of view? Was she now encouraging you to, like when you were from the pedestal, she was probably telling you need to be a little more humble. I imagine when you were on the park bench, she was going, "Mate, you've got a whole lot more potential."
I'm not sure what she thought, but I'm not sure she thought I had much potential because things had gone so awry. Wheels had every wheel had come off. And it had just gone from daylight to darkness almost after our honeymoon.
Wow.
It was that quick and it went that badly wrong. And, we had a bunch of, we had a property portfolio with the company and everything was gone. Everything was gone within 12 months. And she was also pregnant with our first baby. And we were she was in at the back of the high court watching me as a bad witness because entrepreneurs make shitty witnesses, I can tell you. And watching all of that. So I'm not sure at that point she said, Brian's got potential. I don't think that was in her head. I'll tell you a funny story with you. This is my life. There's a lot of learnings I think every entrepreneur you and I know, I think had a dark moment where they thought, shit, this ain't gonna.
I think so.
This ain't gonna. Well, I'm not gonna come out of this. And one of our moments was when we decided we were going into receivership, and I was deciding whether I was going to go personally bankrupt. And we were with this fella. Mark was his name. He was East End kind of guy, geezer. He's a real Ebenezer geezer. And Kerry was like 7 or 8 months pregnant, and we were meeting him to hand him off to sign the documents, which we didn't, by the way, sign in the very end. But at that point, we were looking, and we were there he was explaining to us that this is, he said, what's going to happen is you're going to give me the keys to all your assets, and then you don't have to worry about anything. You just I'll take care of it from you. And Kerry was kind of holding everything together and just been through the high court and was like so solid the whole way along because I struggled the whole way through that period. I would literally at one point I punched the wall with anger and fear that she actually was holding me up. And anyway, when this guy was explaining that we were going to lose everything and it would all go into a pot and then the creditors would take it, that or that, she started kind of welling up a bit, and this guy who's had the emotional intelligence of a gnat, I can see, Kerry, you're a bit upset, yeah, Sounds
like Del Boy.
Right. She says, I'm just a little bit, I'm fine. No, Nick, you don't need to worry about it. You'll worry about what's going to happen because you're losing the properties, you're losing the company, you're losing it. And she said, yeah, just leave. I'm fine. So Kerry said, you don't need to worry about nothing. So I see you're expecting a baby. And she goes, yeah. She's like 8 months. She's out here, very observant of you.
Yeah,
you don't need to worry about it, nothing. Because you're expecting a baby, you're going to go right to the top of the council house list.
Okay, that's encouraging.
That's
where I want to be.
Burst out and about, oh shit, that's where it's going to be. That's where. But we didn't end up.
You didn't sign the documents.
Didn't sign the documents. Actually, we managed to, only the landlords and HMRC that tax.
And what prevented you from signing the documents? What prevented you from signing the documents and handing everything away?
I guess I then switched advisors, and he's my advisor and my barrister since then, a fellow called Philip, and he just kind of made me see sense for the first time because I was a bit of a thick-headed, single-minded. This is how it's going to be done. Keep out of my way. And I think as entrepreneurs, we do have to be single-minded. But I was single-minded, but then it was only my opinion kind of counted, which wasn't very healthy. But then this guy, he's been my mentor and my barrister since then. And that was 20-something years ago. He just sit down and say, here, Brian, this is what we're going to do. And so he showed me here, we're going to do this a different way. And we're going to save the business, which we did. And we grouped and built our own software, went back into the market, and the thing flew like Particularly when we built our own software, we outsourced to India. We started being able to drop our prices ever so slightly, but delivering like a day and a half faster than our competitor because we were paying contractors, and the thing just flew, and we had software type margins, but it was all under his and maybe 2 or 3 other people's guidance. That, because I had a business mentor with the YPO. I had a business coach who used to come in. I had a life coach as well. I had a spiritual director. I had 4 people that I would meet once a month at least, probably once a week, some of them, depending on how busy we were, just to keep myself on the straight and narrow, which I didn't have before the wheels came off. And I think that's why it's ever so important to have good counsel. Just anybody, just somebody who you know and trust, and somebody who's been there and done it before you, so that they're not just talking.
And do you keep that good counsel now?
Absolutely, yeah.
Mm. What's interesting listening to you is that you spent a long time telling the story of doom, how difficult it was, which, by the way, I think is really important for people to listen to, particularly young entrepreneurs, because I don't see these stories as depressing. To me, they're an expression to younger entrepreneurs that you will hit challenges, and it's the road you're on. You know what I mean? It's. I remember my mother passed away 15 years ago, shortly after I got married, or I can't remember. Maybe it was when we had our first child, saying to me something to the effect that, when you have a baby, it can be really, really difficult on a marriage. It puts a lot of pressure on a marriage. And we'd been married for maybe 4 or 5 years before I had our first child. So an extended honeymoon, and then this baby comes along. And I remember saying to Paul that it can be really, really difficult. The young child is like. And I remember when it became really, really difficult, when a baby's crying at 4 o'clock in the morning and both of us had to get up for work, and we're at each other. And I remember my mother's words, because I've taught to myself, this is what happens. Like, this is the road. It's not that there's something wrong with our marriage. This is just the road. And that was a real insight. So I suppose that's the insight I'm looking for people to take away, that when they come to the challenge, that it's the road. But the other side is that then you very quickly said, and we get over it, and the rest was kind of roses. And I have been at fault of telling similar stories. Many, many years ago, I'd been at a dinner party, and I went through a massive change in the business, maybe not quite as dramatic as yours, but I did go through a big change in the business. And I would, many years ago, tell the story at the dinner party. And as I'd be telling this great story, my wife would go, whoa. You're telling nobody about the 2 years of shit that you went through. I mean, you're not telling anyone about how extremely difficult it was for 2 years. And I'd brush her off and go, yeah. As time went on, and maybe I got a little more mature, I realized, that's the most important part. That's the key to the story, is that I went through those difficult years, because to come out the other side is often you often have to walk through the challenge to come out the other side. So I'm guessing you didn't actually just snap your fingers and build this great 360 group. I'm guessing that you turned a corner and then climbed a
Yeah, it was a kind of a regrouping exercise, because 360 had existed since 1998. Then we went into receivership in 2002, 2003, actually. And then it started getting going. So it took me a couple of years. Yeah, it didn't. I guess it took a couple of years. It felt like I was in the desert, in the doldrums for a couple of years. And I think I was. But the biggest part for me was meeting this WPO, which is part of YPO, which is a sister group of EO, in this mentorship program. This guy in WPO, a fellow called Robert, we're still in touch today. And then this is 20 years ago plus. And he was the chief executive of Mandarin Oriental Hotel Group, so big hitter. He was the CEO, and he was to be posted back to the US, but then he ended up staying in London. I said, hey, any chance you could mentor me? And he had chosen somebody else to mentor in the program. But then that felt, so it was just one thing and another. And he taught me so many different things about, one of the things he said, Brian, stop spending your own dollars. I stopped because I was being so skint, and I was like really, really being frugal on investment in the future. He said, Brian, you got to invest. Stop thinking you're taking away from your own salary or your own dividend. Invest for the future now, because you've got an opportunity in front of you. And also just stop tripping over things that are behind you. That's what he told me.
Yeah, in the past.
In the past, yeah. He said, why are you tripping over stuff that are in their past, And what happened in the past does not mean equal what happened, because I realized that I made so many mistakes, and I'm thinking, am I just going to be prone to those kind of mistakes again? He said, no, and we're going to change that. And things like financial reporting, getting the right people around me. And that was the other thing, was just, there was less than a handful of people who I remember through those times that supported me. One was Robert, another was this guy, Philip, who's my barrister, friend of mine, Eamon, and a friend of mine, Gareth. This guy, Frank, who was my mentor. Yeah, there was kind of those few people that I knew who knew that to support. I don't know how they knew to support me, but they did. Because I wasn't calling out for it, because I was kind of gone back into my shell. But there were certain people who just knew to do the right things when I wasn't instructing or asking for it. So yeah, when you look back on it, just surrounding surrounding yourself with those, they say that you are the average of the 5 people that you hang out with. So I think it's really important, particularly when you do hit that storm, that you do have those people around you. And sometimes it's just luck, or sometimes it just come out of the woodwork. But all those kind of things, and then just putting it straight, trying to find what the North Star is and what it is that we're trying to do, and then trying to rebuild and go, okay, how can we build something different this time around? Rather than just going, because all I was doing was going for growth. And that served well. But growth for just growth's sake, that whole, revenues for vanity, profits for sanity, cash flow is king, and valuation is emperor, is kind of, it's the full version of that. Is not just looking at the turnover, is looking at your profitability, is looking at your cash flow beneath that, and then is looking at the valuation underneath that and of the company, which I hadn't been looking at all in the previous episode of chapter 1 of building that business. So chapter 2 was just a totally new chapter with a fresh look at it. And the MIT program really helped to do that. And that was just good timing as well, 2006. So I was just getting the confidence back, and then went into a group each summer with 60 other entrepreneurs at MIT from all around the world. And all of a sudden it's like, wow, this is how you run a business.
Yeah. I think that's the thing, is that you don't know what you don't know. And when we spoke about luck, I don't know what it was before we hit record or not. And luck is a big part of it. And I think you were very fortunate to have those sort of people around you from all aspects of your life that could advise and guide and mentor you. You're very lucky. You were very lucky to have that. But you have to be open and receptive to that also. And you have to not let your ego get in the way. But I think one of the things about developing in your life, and anyway, and when you go through these challenges, part of the reason I would think that you're able to move on and become much more successful again was that a bit, maybe the expression "stop spending your own dollars" is that you'd been through what you'd been through, and you took the lessons. Without carrying the trauma, you took the lessons and you learned from the people around you and go, okay, right, that was both successful and a mess up, and shit went wrong, but I've learned a lot, I've grown, and you start again a new person, and you build something new. When you moved into that phase 2, you talked about the North Star, was exiting part of the North Star, or was that on your horizon at all?
That's a really good question. No, it wasn't. And I think that was a fault. I think I should have focused on that a lot more, but all I wanted to do is get the business back up and running again, make it profitable, make it successful, just to prove that I can rebound, what's his name? Endo Cunningham wrote a book, the Irish entrepreneur, The Unsinkable Entrepreneur. And I used to have that there and going, right, I'm not going to sink. I just want to make sure, I want to prove to the world that I can make it back again.
Yeah.
So that's all I had in my mind was really, how do we go back in phase 2, in 2.0, us, me and the company, and make this better with the learnings that I had. So, and the first thing that we did was it was the mid 2000s. We built our own software on .NET technology, which was just newish at the time, a couple of years old. And we created an online system for contractors to be able to track their payments, which never existed before. And that also allowed us to outsource our back office, which was the back office work, data processing work was being done in London. We were then able to outsource that, and we outsourced it. We had an office with about 20 people in it in Bangalore.
Wow.
Just a place called Salem, south of Bangalore. And that we were just able to do overnight work and have everything prepared and payroll ready and out the door by 9 a.m. before anybody else had started their processing. So that made us faster, quicker, better. And that I just enjoyed. I remember you used to have a moped coming back to Barnes in West London, and I remember singing with joy, being just the moment or the time, and I went, we're back.